Well, good afternoon, viewers. Today we have a 2007 Hyundai Elantra, and it's here because the charge indicator light is flickering. Let's have a look at it. Now, he didn't say the battery was going dead. Comes on solid when you turn the key on. You can see the charge indicator light. Try with the headlights on. Maybe that'll improve it. It's flickering. No belt squeal, but this has got a manually adjusted belt. So we're going to put a voltmeter on it and check the charging system, see if it's actually charging. There's no voltmeter in the dash. So let's get a voltmeter out and have a look at the actual system voltage. So as it appears, running at 12.4 or 12.15 volts, it's not charging. So we're going to qualify the belt tension. There's a bit of a noise coming from the front of this engine as well. I'm going to listen to it with a stethoscope, see if it's coming from the alternator. Well, I can't really pinpoint the noise. It's a bit of a rattle. It might be coming from the front of the engine, but it's not on the alternator. So we're going to go pull up a wiring diagram for this thing and have a look at how this is wired and do some electrical tests on this alternator. So here's an OEM wiring diagram for the charging system, and it shows 3 wires to the charging system alternator. The big main battery wire, which we're going to qualify with a headlight, comes from a 125 amp fuse. And the light wire, the L wire, is connected to the warning light in the dash, the charge indicator light, which works when we turn the key on. So I would say that that's fine. And then the FR wire is field regulator wire, is coming from the ECM through the engine room junction box. I'm not exactly sure what the alternator does with that wire, or what the ECM does with that wire to control it. So being as how the ECM is in control, we should actually scan this thing for codes as well. But I'm going to check the output wire on the battery post on the back of the alternator first. So I've got a headlight connected to the battery negative post and the output wire of the alternator, and as you can see, it's lighting a headlight up. So I'm pretty sure that that fuse and fuse link circuit is good, and the light wire is good. So the belt is reasonably tight. It's not squealing, so I'm sure it's not slipping. I think we just got a failed regulator in the alternator. But we're going to scan it for codes just because the ECM is in control of the alternator, and see if there's any help there. So I'm going to try to do a code scan. I've loaded the vehicle record. I worked on this before. It says key on, engine off. So I've got a clean battery charger hooked up to it. Although it's only showing 11.7 on the scanner there. Then we get to listen to my compressor run. Network code scans on Hyundais and Kias tend to be fairly slow. So I'll pick up no codes in the ECM, but I'll pick up when we get to the end of this network scan. So there are no codes in any computers. There's not very many controllers in this thing. 3. Doesn't have an airbag. Let's see if there's any functional tests for the charging system. Engine off tests. No, I don't see anything to do with the charging system. Thought maybe we could full field the charging system. Engine running tests. Okay, I got to start it up. It's interesting, I got a clean battery charger set at 13.5 volts, and it's on now. and it's still flickering the battery indicator light. Okay, injector testing. So that's of no use to us. Let's look at data in the ECM, see if there's anything related to the charging system. Battery voltage 13.6. Don't see anything to do with the charging system other than battery voltage. Now, it's likely a failed alternator. I'm going to read the theory of operation of the charging system just to be safe. So here's the OEM description of the charging system. It mentions nothing about the FR terminal at the alternator and what the ECM's role is in controlling this thing. Now that could be field regulation, or it could be, it does contain a voltage regulator, but it could be overridden by the PCM, or it could be just monitoring the charging system load, but it doesn't specify anything. So now you wonder why technicians get in trouble and just throw parts at it. I've spent 15 minutes trying to find out what that FR wire does, and to no avail. Here's the factory troubleshooting chart for low voltage. Start the engine and raise the engine speed to 25 to 3000. Turn on all electrical loads. Monitor battery voltage parameter on the scan tool. And it should be somewhere between 14.2 and 15.4. If yes, go to the next step. If no, possibility of charging system malfunction. Repair or replace alternator and battery. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Well, we're going to do that. We're going to throw an alternator at it and hope it fixes it. So I drove the car outside and I noticed smoke coming from the belt area. I shut it off and the belt melted right off of the alternator pull. The alternator just seized solid. So I guess it was a good call. The customer just brought it here in time. But the alternator was running and the belt was turning and the pulley was spinning. It wasn't squealing, but it started smoking when I drove it out. Oh well, we'll get a belt and an alternator for it. So I don't dare touch that pulley with my fingers. So I put a pair of channel locks on it and the alternator seized solid. That's funny that it was making kind of a noise, but it didn't sound like it was coming from the alternator. The belt is smoked. There's only one belt on this thing, and it looks like it's manually adjusted, yeah, with the alternator tensioner. So we'll get a belt. So we're back working on this Elantra with the seized alternator. And I removed the 3 bolts that hold the plastic cover underneath the oil filter housing, and the 3 bolts that hold the inner fender skirt in to get access to the bottom of this alternator. Now this pivot bolt is seized in the alternator. I'm also having difficulty unplugging the connector, but that's minor. Gonna get some penetrating fluid. I think it's seized in the alternator, and it's got a square on it, so you can't turn it. So you can't twist it. And they're infinite wisdom, so you have to push it straight through. The pivot bolt is rusty, but that's minor. I got that off. Oh well, here we go again. So I heated the ear of the alternator on both ends, put the nut back on the end of the bolt, and I used an air chisel with a long bit, and I managed to push it in 1/4 of an inch. Now that should allow it to. No, it still won't turn, but it's moved. I'm going to tap it back again, back and forth. So there's the alternator off. Like I said, I heated up this aluminum ear here and this ear here at the back, and then I tapped it in with the air hammer, and then I put a 1-inch bolt in there and pushed it in a little bit, and then a 2-inch bolt and a 3-inch bolt. I did melt this housing, but it doesn't matter because we're changing the alternator. There's the Wilson reman that I got. And I got 2 belts for it, one for the AC and one for the alternator. The AC belt's in ugly condition as well. And that tensioner looks like it's going to be a problem, but we're going to take it off. Oh, and in order to get the alternator out the bottom, you have to take the oil filter off. We should be able to reuse the oil filter. It was recently replaced. Yeah, that doesn't look good. So here's a little fun fact I wish I knew. That bracket was slotted, so I didn't have to take the bolt out. I could have just pried the alternator up. But it wouldn't go up unless you take the upper bracket off, so the upper adjuster bracket. So I've actually cleaned up the bolt. I replaced the nut because I damaged it with the air chisel. So it's going to be a 13 mil head instead of a 12 mil head, so he'll lose points at the car show. But we'll get this alternator sitting in there. Oh, and I repositioned this bushing just slightly with a socket and a bolt and a nut so that it drops in easier. So there's the alternator reinstalled. Clean the cable eyelet with a Rolox sanding disc and secure the wire to the alternator bracket. That little push pin Christmas tree clip broke, obviously. New belt. Put the guards back on. So we're going to let it down and check the charging system. Clean the battery cable and check the charging system. Well, there it is, back together and running and charging at 14.5 volts. Clean the battery cables. Only thing we got left to do is double check the belt tension. Now these belts are manually adjusted, so they'll need to be retensioned in about 5,000 kilometers. And I'm going to check the engine oil level because I did lose a little bit taking the oil filter off. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.